just record now. Excellent. And I am excited to introduce Miriam Lieberman. I actually remember Miriam when I used to live on the West Side, and I remember distinctly when I was giving birth to my second child. I was in the taxi going to the hospital, and Miriam was calling me with names that I should be davening for. So Miriam does so much chesed, and I'm so excited to hear what she has to talk to us about today. Miriam Lieberman grew up on the west side of Manhattan, in the heart of New York City, raised her family in the city, and relocated a short while ago to Lawrence. Baruch Hashem, the transition went smoothly, and Miriam is acclimating to her new life in suburbia. A graduate of Wurzweiler School of Social Work and TIW, Teachers Institute for Women of Yeshiva University, Miriam has incorporated her skills and God-given talents in diverse ways. These days, she orchestrates tambourine workshops and leads sing-alongs. Miriam does quite a bit of inspirational writing and speaking. Co-authored Saying Goodbye, Dealing with Grief and Bereavement with Dr. Neil Goldberg, edited 2 anthologies for women, The Best Is Yet to Be, To Fill the Skies with Stars, both by Menucha Publishing. Miriam is published regularly in our communal magazines. These days, Miriam is super involved with JWOW, Jewish Women of Wisdom, created to offer a supportive forum for mid-aged women. Connect, communicate, grow is their tagline. Thank you, Miriam. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for being with us.
Okay, great. Can you hear me, everyone? Do you hear me? Someone answer?
Sorry, yes, we do. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, good. Okay. Adele, thank you. It's lovely to see you again. It's been a long time. All right, those days when I was involved with A Time then. I edited the magazine, and I was very involved with this world of infertility, but we always need the tefillas. So this is quite a treat for me to be on today. And if you'd like to join, ladies, with your videos, it'd be great to see beautiful faces on and beautiful smiles. So you're welcome to come join. When I speak, hello, Judith. Hi, good to see you. It's not so much a share as a sharing. I've always been a voracious reader, and I love to share the things that inspire me and intrigue me. I'm really delighted to share with others. And I just want to mention, this is the first time I'm introducing myself to all of you here. My father had been a wonderful speaker and a very learned man, and he always encouraged me to speak and to share. He loved to share his divrei Torah. He was a ghostwriter for others. So whenever I do share with women, I feel like he's smiling up there. So it's a very good feeling. Okay, so we had a topic today, enhancing the mother-daughter relationship. So I'll get there, but I'd like to do a little detour as we begin, as just by way of introduction, but I will get to the main topic at hand. But I hope that you'll find these concepts as relevant as I do. So the last couple of weeks were busy ones. A lot of us were busy. Baruch Hashem, we had graduations, and we had Siddur parties, Chumash parties with the Kanana with grandchildren. And it was very, very moving experiences for me. And I want to share with you some of the highlights. I just want to mention, we use the word graduation, but we also use the term commencement. So we're not just commemorating the end of the schooling, but it's the commencement. We're anticipating the beginning of something very, very special. So we give the blessing as you go from Chayil to Chayil. It's just the beginning. It's certainly not the end when they graduate. So the first experience I had a little boy at Victor's about 5 years old, and he had a Chumash play. This is Yeshiva Darchei Torah in Far Rockaway. Rabbi Bender's yeshiva is quite well known in East Machanech. And it could have been 100 little boys marching in so proudly, and they were all adorable, of course. But for me, what was moving is the song they were walking into was a song by A.B. Rottenberg, Come On and Ride the Train. Now, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the song. I just want to read you 2 stanzas. They did not know the entire song by heart, and I'm sure they had no idea of the significance of what they were singing. But I do recommend this, the Journeys series by A.B. Rottenberg is fabulous. The songs are all in English and very powerful lessons in each.
Miriam, I think you went on mute. We can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep, great.
Okay, where did you lose me? Just now? How far down?
I don't think we heard you any of the stanzas.
Oh, I didn't say that yet. Okay,
great.
So these are the stanzas that the little boys are walking down to. Life is a journey on the train. You take a walk through the train, each boxcar one by one. Most are filled with people saying this ride's just for fun. Why think about tomorrow when you got today instead? Sit back, enjoy the view. There's miles and miles of rail ahead. But one car seems so different, inhabited by few who say there is no time to waste. We're only passing through. The choices that we make today are all that's going to last. The train is moving down the track and it's moving awful fast. So this is what the little boys were singing. And this just brought me to tears because the older we get, the older I get at least, I realize how time is just rushing by and we really have to use our time well. So, and then just in terms of a journey, Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, who was a Mir Yeshiva, Rosh Yeshiva, and the pasuk that we read recently was Parshas Bamidbar, Al Pi Hashem Yachanu v'Al Pi Hashem Yisu. According to the words of Hashem, we encamp. This is in the Midbar in the desert. And according to Hashem's words, we picked up and we traveled again. So Reb Shmulevitz gives a parable. When a baby is in his mother's arms, he can travel from city to city, state by state. He can be on the boat, on the plane, on the ship. And if the baby was able to talk and you would say, where were you? He would say, I was in my mother's arms. So it's the same way as we travel through life, we really should feel that we're in Hashem's embrace. Because we always have detours in life and there are challenges in life. But if we feel that we're in Hashem's embrace, wherever we are, we will feel at peace. We will not have turbulence. And there are people who really exhibit that kind of faith and trust in God's embrace. Unfortunately, we lost a gadol among us. Rav Nata Greenblatt passed away a couple of weeks ago. Some of you may have read about him. And in one of the articles, this is from the Hamodia, it was late at night. His son came into the room and so he was up and he said to him, are you okay? And he responded, why wouldn't I be okay? And Rabbi Yoel, the son, said, because you're 97 years old. And he responded to him, Rabbi Nata, there is Hashem in this world. There is nothing to worry about. I'm in good hands. That's exactly what he said. I'm in good hands. He really felt embraced by God all through his life. So that was the first experience I had with this was a Siddur party. Then I had a Chumash play. This was in Lakewood, in the Cheder of Lakewood. And again, Kananahar must have been 100 little boys marching in. What was so moving for me is that before they began their presentation, they called up the Kohanim to the front of the room to bless the children, the Birchas Kahuna, or the Duchanin, as we call it. Now, we know that in Eretz Yisrael, they do this every day. We in Chutz La'aretz, it's just on Yantif, and it's very special. And my family, it's given the bracha. My husband is a Kohen. My sons, my grandsons are all Kohanim. It's extraordinary for me. So I have this little boy up front, a 5-year-old. There were 2 little boys with their hands raised, and they were giving over the Birchas Kahuna. So again, very moving for me. And I read recently, I'll share with you, the Blushever Rebbe, Rabbi Yisrael Shapiro, he was well-known. Nebuch, he was in the Warsaw Ghetto, I think it was. No, he was here in America afterwards. I think he was in the Warsaw Ghetto. You can read a lot about him in Hasidic Tales of the Holocaust. And what he would point out, when we say the Birchas Kohanim, you'll notice it's written, Yivarechacha Hashem v'yishmerecha. It's written in the Yachid, it's in the individual, not as plural. And why is that? If we're asking for peace, whether it's countries at peace or countries at war or others at war, they say it takes 2 to tango, right? It used to be 2 to tango, 2 to tangle. There are always 2 people if there's any kind of altercation and conflict. But he says differently. He says the Birchas Kahuna of Shalom, it's referring to inner peace. Isn't that beautiful? We're asking Hashem, we need equanimity, we need tranquility, serenity, whatever we call it. It's something that we're hoping for also for ourselves. And just as a side note, it was so interesting, people know what's going on in America today with the liberals and the conservatives. It's when you read the papers, it's kind of frightening. And this is an opinion piece in the Hamodia by Jeff Jacoby. He points out that the really first civil war that we had in America was the time of the Revolution. And I never heard this. We all know about Benjamin Franklin, right, who was one of the founding fathers of America. Do you know that his son was a patriot? And I'm sorry, he was a loyalist. He was on the side of the Englishmen. And Ben Franklin's son was put into prison because he was still loyal to the king. And he landed up in solitary confinement. And he wrote, I suffer so much in being buried alive, having no one to speak to today, that I should deem it a favor to be immediately taken out and shot. That's what the son wrote to his father. And the father did not take him out of prison. Like, it's a shocking thing. This is father and son. This was the first civil war, really, that we had in America. So we ask for shalom. We need peace on every level here in America, Eretz Yisrael, for sure, all over the world, in Russia, and we ask for inner peace. Now, in terms of inner peace, I read so many beautiful things. We're asking for Yishuv Hadas, we call it Menuchas HaNefesh, we can call it serenity, tranquility, equanimity. I'm back, it's really very appropriate because we just had the 4th of July. I mentioned before Ben Franklin. And let's go to Thomas Jefferson now. And the truth is we have to have Akara Satov because this has been a wonderful place for our fellow Jews after the war, those of us who were able to make it here, our fathers, and built up communities, Torah schools and synagogues, and it has been a blessing. Although we know our ultimate home is Eretz Yisrael, we should be there Bekarov. But we do have Akara Satov. So Thomas Jefferson helped write the Constitution, Declaration of Independence. And remember, what they wrote there, we're all endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and I'm sure you could finish it for me, and the pursuit of happiness, right? Now, this I took out of the TED. This was Purim time when they're talking about having Menuchas HaNefesh and joy in our lives. And they say, is it true? Can everyone be successful in pursuing and achieving happiness? He says, interesting. When we pursue happiness, is that a guarantee of achieving happiness? We might actually be sabotaging all our efforts when we chase after it. Why? Because number one, if we're pursuing happiness, we think we don't have happiness yet. Maybe we do have it and we don't even realize it. If we're constantly pursuing it, we're in a different mindset, number one. Number two, many people pursuing happiness, they have a certain goal in mind. When I buy that house, when I lose 10 pounds, when I get my degree, when I have the baby. And as long as you have a goal in mind, first of all, halavai, you should get there. But once you achieve that goal, you're going to set up another goal. You're never going to be happy. But thirdly, and this was so interesting for me, many of us, we don't even know what happiness is. What is happiness? How would we define it? Maybe serenity and peace. Maybe we have happiness today. We should capitalize on what we have today. And they point out that perhaps that's why Chazal on Purim, we know that the men are supposed to drink Ad Shelo Yoda. They don't know the difference, right, between Haman, Harash, and Mordechai, that they lose their sense of their balance, their wisdom. Why is that? Since Purim is the happiest day of the year, we're directed, don't think so much. Don't think, am I happy, am I not? What do I have to, what are my goals? Just be happy today. Enjoy the happiness that the simple pleasures in life have to offer. And then we can have that state of happiness and equanimity. Just an interesting point about happiness is Reb Chaim Kanievsky, what they'd answered. They asked him, there are certain names that men and women share alike. For example, the name Yonah. They said, can a man Yonah marry a woman named Yonah? And the response was, no, they have to add a second name. But he said, what about the name Simcha? He said, no. Why? Because Simcha is different for men and women. Isn't that interesting? This is something you may want to discuss with the men folk in your life. Simcha is different for men and women. And then I had a graduation of an 8th grader, and the principal, Rabbi Gelman, this is in Mesores in Flatbush, spoke. And he started off by saying, and now we're getting to our topic at hand. When he became a principal, he consulted with Rav Pam Zatzal, who was Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva Tar V'Das and played a major role here in New York. And he asked him, I'm taking over, I'm running a school. What should I focus on? Rav Gelman told him, Kibud of Va'im. That's the most important concept. So I found that very interesting. And I want to show you 2 books here, a little bit of show and tell. One is called Establishing Parental Status. The other is called Chinuch in the Balance by Rabbi Aaron Pollack. Now, these books are not available in the public, in the stores. It's done privately. What's interesting is that this one, the Establishing Parental Status, is mandatory reading for the parents of many of the more right-wing schools. My friend Yenny Kaufman, her daughter was in Beis Yaakov in Borough Park years ago, and before they're able to enroll their children, they have to read this book. And what they're saying here is that, and I see it myself, is that as hard as we try, standards have dropped a bit over the years. One friend tells me that her husband, when he goes to visit the children, he walks into the room, he announces, okay, everyone, he says, Zaidi is here. Everyone look up, make eye contact with me, smile. The children are so sometimes self-absorbed, maybe distracted. Electronics has always been a big issue and a huge distraction. But the kibbut of aim that there generations ago that people would just stand up automatically when a parent walked in or a grandparent walked in, we're not there anymore. We just don't want to fall lower. And we have to, he points out in the beautiful sefer that it's not that we need the kibbut of aim, that I need it, Dafka, but the children need it for their development. And the Aseres Hadibros, it's on the left side together with the mitzvahs that are between man and God, not between man and man, between man and God. Because a parent is the first authority figure that the children relate to. And how we relate to a parent is how we ultimately relate to God, or it helps to shape that relationship. We have to make sure that there is a respect and awe. A parent is not a friend. Now, I've been talking about this for a while. I just ordered 15 copies, and now I will not give this. Okay, I am giving it to my children, but at this point, I'm certainly not criticizing my own children. But what I tell them is, read this book so as you're raising your own children, you can make sure to incorporate an appropriate level of kibbut of aim. Now, I was talking to this with a friend of mine. We were in shul together, and the rabbi at that Shabbos about 4 weeks ago spoke about the topic, how the level unfortunately has been dropping. And I gave him these books to read. And this is a note he wrote back to me. You see the pink sticker, probably his wife's. And I gave it to so many people. Everyone puts their own little sticker in. It's sticky, and I kept them all in because it's interesting to see everyone is touched by a different point. And what did he write? His name is Rabbi Yeshua Kalish from the Harborview Shul in Harborview section here. And he writes, I enjoyed reading the books on parenting. We are fighting a lost battle, but it's worth the effort. Thank you, Rabbi Yeshua Kalish. Now, I don't think it's a lost battle. I disagree with him, but it's certainly worth fighting. So I want to mention a couple of things to you. Also, we talk about kibbut of aim. It's also about respecting the mother within ourselves. We have to give weight to who we are and the roles that we play, whether as a mother, a grandmother, a mother-in-law. And often we can find ourselves mothering neighborhood children and nieces and nephews, even if we don't have our own biological children. We are often playing a role model, or we can be a mentor to others. There's a beautiful line we say in Ahava Rabbah every day. The same Billy Beinu Bina, Lahavin Laskilishmo, Lilmod or Lalamed. We're asking Hashem for the Bina in order to learn and to teach. We're always in teaching mode. And I heard this very interesting. Liba Schwebel, some of you may know, she's an ace teacher. And she told me, Reb Noach Weinberger, of blessed memory, from the founder and the Rosh Hashiva at Or Sameach, was in New York, and she was driving him around. And he asked her, tell me, Mrs. Schwebel, what do you do? And she said, I'm a housewife. And he said, do you teach? She says, no, I don't teach. And he says, well, you should teach because Lil Mother Lalamed, everyone is a teacher. And you know what? Liba began to teach then. I asked her, how did you begin your career? That's how she began. So each of us inadvertently is a teacher on some level, but we have to give kavod to our own role. And I have to share with you a personal story, very, very interesting. My son was learning, this is before Pesach a couple of years ago, my son Yudah, his son was about 8, 9 at the time. And they were reviewing the laws of the Seder night, and they're discussing how the men have to lean to the side. And Yisrael asked his father, and tell me, Papi, he says, do the women have to lean? And Yudah says, the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch says that chashuv women have to lean. And Yisrael responded, oh, so Savta has to lean. Now, I am Savta. Now, the truth is, I never thought of myself as chashuv. I always thought that a grandmother has to be fun-loving and warm and caring and just have a good time with the kids. I never thought of myself in that role as a teacher, sort of being chashuv. But he's right. You and I, we are all links in the chain from above. So we're carrying on. We're connecting the next link, and to give over the Masorah, we have to be chashuv. We have to be machshiv our role. We have to give weight and dignity to the role that we're playing. So just an interesting point. Okay, let's go on. Give kavod, honor the mother within us. So I have a couple of books that were very powerful for me. This one is called What My Mother Gave Me by Elizabeth Benedict, 31 Women on the Gifts That Mattered Most. It was not a Jewish book, a secular book, but it was so powerful. I read it about 3-4 times. And the women are talking about gifts, not necessarily physical gifts, but gifts that they were given. I have a friend, Gali, we have a program 9:00 in the morning. She shares with her mother, the gift she has from her mother. She says, for example, her mother, and this is a very high level, when the boys over Bar Mitzvah walk in, these boys who are learning Torah, she stands up for them. Isn't that beautiful? to be machshav the Torah that they are learning. So I'm thinking perhaps I will take that on also, to show that we're so appreciative and we're machshav them. So it's an interesting concept to think about the gifts that we have from our mothers. And we do have gifts. The Inyan magazine just started a new column called Fortifying the Fifth. See the Aseret HaDibros on top, and the fifth of the Aseret HaDibros is Kibbud Av V'Em by Rabbi Abraham Heschel. And he points out here that the Baal HaCharedim, and the Baal HaCharedim is the one who wrote the beautiful Nigun Yedid Nefesh that we sing on Shabbos, beautiful Nigun. And he says the primary aspect of Kibbud Av V'Em is how we think about our parents. We are obligated to venerate them in our hearts. And Reb Chaim Shmulevitz states there's an obligation to contemplate and find specific positive attributes of a parent. Everyone has something positive within them. So my own mother was a very, very special woman. Many gifts I have from her, but it wasn't always an easy relationship. But I so appreciate it. It's many years, it's 10 years since she's gone, and I'm hoping and working on incorporating many of the gifts that I do have from her. But I want to share with you, very, very interesting, because it's also a perspective on our relationships. And again, I'm referring now not just to the relationships of us with our own mothers, and those who are still blessed with mothers, what a blessing, but with us, with our own daughters and granddaughters. My mother was very ill, and I wanted to have closure with my mother. My father unfortunately had died many years ago. It's over 40 years ago. Very suddenly, there was no closure, and I wanted closure. I think specifically because I knew that there were conflicting issues, it was important that I have closure. And I davened to Hashem, help me with this, please. This is a tough one. And so what did I do? I read in Miriam Adahan, wonderful Dr. Miriam Adahan. She's a wonderful teacher, psychologist, many, many books out there. She writes, Kananahar, you'll have a family with a number of children. There's always going to be one that challenges you the most. And you may ask, this one that I davened for, this is the one that's challenging so much? And the response is yes. God gave us that child particularly who challenges us and touches those buttons because we need to grow dafka in that particular area. So I shared this with my mother. She was already like a week or two before she passed away. And I said, Mommy, I know the relationship hasn't always been such an easy one, but I shared this concept. And I said, for me to be the person that I turned out to be, you have been and should continue to be my absolutely perfect mother. And even if you hadn't thought so, I was your perfect daughter because I'm the one you needed to grow in your own way. And so the end of her life, this is how we ended off. I used to go over every morning and we davened the Baruch Shema and we would sing and I would remind her, I said, remember, Mommy, you are my perfect mother and I am your perfect daughter. And she would smile each time. So this was a huge gift that God gave me in terms of my relationship. But it's the truth. You know, the ones that challenge us in our lives, they're given to us for a reason so we can work on particular midos. Sometimes it's only in retrospect that we realize that. I remember when I sat Shiva for my mother, a very wise woman, Adele, maybe you'll remember from the West Side, Rebbetzin Chaya Cohen. Her sister was Rebbetzin Besser, a very, very wise woman, grew up, she's a Yerushalmi, grew up in Eretz Yisrael, Yerushalayim. And she said to me in her day, they would give each other a bracha. The bracha is, may the mitzvah of Kibbud Av V'Em be an easy one for you. So I said, in my days, no one had given me that bracha, so I give it to all of you. Now, I have a beautiful book here, How Alma Says I Love You. Beautiful, beautiful book. It's a new book by Shani Cooper. I recommend it to all. I read it to some of my grandchildren already, and then I said to them, and how does Savta love you? You know, many of you are familiar, I'm sure, with Gary Chapman's books. There are different languages of love, and we can share this with our children even when they're young. There are different ways of showing love. I'll illustrate that with a personal story that I think a lot of you will connect to. My oldest son, Avrami, just had his first baby, big simcha. We run to the hospital and I knew he'd been there overnight. And I took a nice healthy breakfast and a salad and fruits, whatever, a healthy sandwich. And I come and I wish mazel tov. We hug and Avrami says, thank you, Mommy, but I'm not hungry. Fine. And then the mother-in-law walks into the room and she has a bag full of cheese danishes and kakush cake and who knows what. And Avrami's eating. I said, Avrami, I thought you weren't hungry. He says, Mom, this is love. So it's interesting. I asked my grandson Ephraim, how do I love you, Ephraim? He says, how do I show that I love you? How do I say I love you? He says, Safta, you play games with us. You make us tefillin bags. You read to us. And it's a wonderful, wonderful book that I recommend very highly because there are different languages of love. And in dealing with our our own children. Sarah Hannah Radcliffe had a wonderful lesson. She says, there are some, and I moved here to Lawrence. I do have, thank God, I have an adult daughter here living here, Kanana, with 7 children. And I had to, my daughter Yehudis, maybe you remember Del. Anyway, she's wonderful. And when I moved in, I was very wary about my relationship. I don't want to be intrusive, and I'm not sure what she expected of me. She may have had expectations of me. I had to figure out what works for me. So Sarah Hannah Radcliffe says it very, very wise. She says there may be some daughters, adult daughters, who want the mothers to be super involved. They want that kugel center where they want the mothers to babysit and drop in and do homework every night with the kids. But those mothers want to have their own lives. They don't want to be busy. They raise their children. They don't want to be busy with little kids anymore. Then you'll have the women my age who want to be super involved, but the daughters don't want it. The daughters want their privacy and their independence. And we don't always get what we want. So the point is that there are so many different ways of parenting and different ways of expressing love, and they're all fine. They're all good. Everyone has to do what works for them. There is not one that is better than the other, but everyone is different. Now, I'm not sure if any of you are following. The Mishpacha magazine is running a very interesting serial now called Second Dance. Anyone reading it? It's about a couple, probably my age, mid-60s, who just moved to Lakewood, to one of these more senior communities. And
I'm reading it. I think it's so interesting, and like lots of familiar feelings of different people that I know.
Right. Okay. I find it fabulous. I wrote a letter to the Mishpacha magazine that was in.
I saw your letter.
Okay.
I saw your letter.
Right. Saying that they're validating what a lot of women are feeling, but also it's a window for the children, the adult children, to see but there's been a lot of controversy. Not everyone likes this series, and some feel that perhaps it's a little bit demeaning for the women. There's a lot to discuss here. In fact, JWOW, we're actually running a Zoom program in 2 weeks discussing that serial, because in every chapter, there is something of interest and relevant. If you go online, mishpacha.com, you'll be able to take a look and see also. So in terms of the mothers and what a gift the mothers are, I want to share with you the last 2 lines. There's a beautiful song by Yiddish Mama. Now, this was popular years ago. It was written in the 1920s. And it's interesting because in a local paper here, I don't know if you see the picture here, we have a local JCC, and they still have, thank God, a Holocaust group, and they had 65 women. Imagine 65 survivors, may they be healthy and well. They must all be well into their 90s at this point. They got together on the 4th of July, and a rabbi from the neighborhood spoke, Rabbi Yosef Spiegel, Beis Medrash of Cedarhurst, and he spoke, and then he sang to them, La Yiddisha Mama. And they were all moved, and they write here, nearly every survivor joined in the song, many with tears streaming down their beautiful faces. I want to read you the last couple of lines, and I'll translate. Wie glücklich und reich, how fortunate and how rich is der Mensch, was hat, is the man who has, as a shina matona geschenkt from God, such a beautiful gift, a present from God. Nor ein altitschka Yiddische Mama. There's no other gift as beautiful as a Yiddish mama mine. Now, let me share something incredibly powerful with you. There's another, I read a lot, this Redhead of Auschwitz. Now, the author is a young woman, Nechama Birnbaum. She is a granddaughter of Rosie, who was the Redhead of Auschwitz. And the daughter of this Rosie is a friend of mine from years back, and I didn't even realize it was her mother. I read the book already 3 times. It is a very painful, but super, super powerful. And what she does with a brilliant literary technique, she moves from Krasner, the hometown, back to the war years. And the next chapter is back in Krasner. So when you feel you can't take any more of this dreadful war experiences, you're back in Krasner. It's written beautifully, beautiful language. But there's a scene, and it's unbelievable. Bergen-Belsen, and a horrendous scene at night, and they're all mamish sobbing. And all of a sudden, they hear a voice, a clear voice. And Rosie writes, my cousin Faggy always sang so beautifully like the bird she was named for. Her voice was like the little bells you hang up to sing with the wind. It was high and clear like fresh water from the stream. When she sang on the farm, the green grass and clear blue sky and wildflowers all came together to dance. And what was she singing? She was singing a Yiddish mama. And all these girls, hundreds of girls stuffed into a barn lying in the mud, were singing a Yiddish mama with her. And she continued to sing, and that calmed them down. The power of a song is incredible. So a beautiful song, my Yiddish mama. Someone wrote, Pesci Needleman wrote in the Bina on discussion on Shavuos with the power of the mother-in-law. She writes how Rus, we're all familiar with Rus, beautiful Megillas Rus, she did not grow up in a Jewish family, right? And when she entered the Jewish world, it was through her mother-in-law, Nami. Everything she learned was from Nami. So she points out that the role of a mother-in-law is not just be nice, be cordial, be friendly, but perhaps we have a role in terms of teaching about Yiddishkeit, which we spoke about before, how we're in the linkage of the chain, and we want to strengthen the chain. Now, I see we're running out of time here. Adele, how much time do I have? I'm going to have to hurry up.
Another 5 minutes or so.
5 minutes, okay.
Great.
I'll pick and choose. Okay, so I want to share something very interesting. I was talking to a friend of mine who's an Ace Machaneches. Her name is Miriam Unger. She's a principal of a school. And she told me she went to meet with Reb Shimon Galai, should be healthy and well, who's a great gadol in Eretz Yisrael, and is discussing chinuch. And she asked him, to what age is a parent responsible for the chinuch of a child? And Reb Shimon Galai said till the age of 18. Isn't that interesting? Because our question is always like, what role do we play with our adult children? So of course, we're always role modeling. There's no question. We're always role modeling. But we can't but teach them what to do when they become an adult. So we have to squeeze a lot into these years and be conscious of this. So I have the privilege, I run a chabura here for young women in their early 40s. And many of them are just marrying off their first children and becoming grandparents. So a lot of questions come up. And one of the questions constantly comes up is, what role do we play with our adult children? Can we tell them what to do? It's especially challenging because many of the parents are supporting the young couples. So what role do we play in their lives? So I actually presented the question to Reb Shais Tao, and it was in last week's Ami, should parents of married kids be quiet? And what he basically says is that we begin our role in vis-a-vis chinuch with our children, and part of it is helping them attain independence begins when they're young. It doesn't start when they turn 16, 17. When they're 4, 5, 6, at every level, we encourage them to be independent, to dress themselves, to help out in the house, to go to the corner grocery and buy milk on their own. It's every step of the way we're encouraging them to independence. And making mistakes is part of the challenge. That's part of the growth experience. So we have to pick and choose. And I want to point out in terms of giving to our parents, it doesn't when a parent unfortunately passes away, hopefully at 120. We can still, sometimes some of them say, the Gedolim, that the greatest respect is when we do mitzvahs down here in their merit, and the merit is accrued to their benefit up in heaven. So that's also very powerful. Zachariah Wallerstein was a great mechanech and had a tremendous impact on many. And they say that he didn't have an easy time in school. And in fact, at one point he saw butterflies in the playground and he asked his Rebbe about butterflies. And the Rebbe says, don't have questions about Hashem, don't question. And he himself decided to do research on butterflies and the whole metamorphosis from the incredible miracle that happens, the caterpillar, the cocoon, the butterfly. And that sort of became his symbol. He loved it, right? Because what's the message of the butterfly? That we all have incredible, unlimited possibility and potential. Everything is possible in Hashem's world. As a person, we can evolve. Even a child having a difficult time can turn into something wonderful. The potential is enormous, absolutely enormous. And they said also, Rabbi Pinchas Stolper passed away recently also. I've read so much about him. And he also was taken under the wing by an incredible mechanech, and his Rebbe was Reb Hutner Zatzal from Chaim, Berlin. So what was the story? When he was 15, Reb Stolper, he joined Beitar. It was a Zionist group, a heavy Zionist group. And normally they didn't have religious kids with them, but somehow he joined them. And this was Reb Zeb Jabotinsky's, was started in 1923. May 1950, imagine, so soon after the war, a German soccer team came to America. Can you imagine, to play ball here, to play soccer? And the mayor of the town of city was hosting a reception for this German soccer team. And what happened? The Beitar group came, Pinchas Stolper with them, and they came to demonstrate, and they pelted them with eggs. And Pinchas Stolper, together with his cronies, was hauled off to jail. And they were on the front cover of the news the next day. Rav Hutner saw the cover. He saw Pinchas Stolper there with the yarmulke, and he says, I want this young man. Bring him to me. And Rav Hutner saw that he had fire. He had passion. He had chutzpah. And he said, I can take this person and help him evolve into the person, help him channel. He helped him channel his energies till he became a Gadol B'Yisrael. Very, very beautiful. So, when you have an ace machanech, the sky's the limit. So as a role as a parent and grandparent, what can we do? How are we machanech our grandchildren? I'd like to think that we can help them develop like an emotional maturity. We can talk about feelings, and we can observe and comment and engage them in conversation, and again, role model by example. Teach them emotional health. I mentioned before the beautiful tefillah Ahava Rabbah. From HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we learn to use love. That there is love in this world. I think another beautiful way of connecting of connecting these links that we just mentioned briefly before is to talk about who the grandchildren are named for. And for them to understand that we have a responsibility, each generation has a responsibility to carry on, to maintain the midos, the masim tovim, and the beautiful attributes of the earlier generation. But Pesach Krohn often speaks about the fact, where does the word einikel, that's the Yiddish word for grandchild. It comes from the verse in the Torah. We talk about when Moshe Rabbeinu encountered the burning bush, v'hasneh einena ukal. The bush did not burn up. It was not consumed. The word einikel comes from there. Einena ukal is an einikel. In other words, when we enter the holy realm up above and the Olam HaEmes, our lives are not over. We're continued. It's never consumed the bush. The tree continues in the grandchildren. So that's where the einikel comes from. And I know I myself, the truth is, I really don't even know who I'm named for. I know there were Miriams in both sides, but no one ever shared with me the significance of the Miriam in my own lineage. But I have taken for myself Miriam Hanavia. You can't get better than Miriam Hanavia as a role model. And that's what really inspired me to start my tambourine workshops. And Methodism, we should use all these tambourines, and all the tefillah should be Mekayim. And together we should meet in Yerushalayim Havniyah as we come to greet Mashiach Tzidkenu. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And I wish for you all the very, very best. May everyone be gebench. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, Miriam. It was beautiful. It was just so packed with so many insights. Do you have a couple of minutes for some questions in case?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah? Okay, great. Does anyone have any questions?
Could we find out about your tambourine workshop? Sounds intriguing.
You know what, Adele, can I send you? Truth is, you can. I don't really. I did it once over Zoom. It doesn't really work. I like to do it in person. But I can. Adele, you want to just give me your email address quickly? Go ahead.
Sure. It's adeledubin@gmail.com. ADELEDUBIN.
Okay, so I'll send you some information. Okay.
Okay.
And I remember when I started it, people were laughing at me, but I said no. And what happens is a friend of mine, her son has a very difficult life, and then her son was ill, and everyone is saying, Mashiach has to come. And I said, we have to do more. You have to do more. And this was my way of preparing. Some people, I have friends who have a Mashiach bag ready. So they put in, at our age, they put in their medication, an extra pair of glasses. It's not a bad idea, just a change of clothes, whatever, a Mashiach bag. And I said, and now many of my friends do have tambourines ready. And on the inside of the tambourines, we have the special brachos that one says Mashiach comes. Are you aware of that there are special brachos?
Wow.
Anyway, so it's lovely. So I'll send it to you.
If you can also send all the books that you had mentioned, they were many. They're
okay.
They're wonderful. Everything to Adele, and then we're gonna get it on the chat.
Yeah, but can I share something else? Another book. I had the privilege of editing a couple of books for women in the middle years. The Best Is Yet to Be and To Fill the Sky with Stars. And they're both anthologies, and they're fabulous. They're discussing everything. The adult children, the older parents. We're discussing menopause. We're discussing letting go, the empty nest. They're fabulous. That I want to make another. I picked up this book now, The Girl in the Red Boots. I didn't read it yet, but I participated in a podcast last week on eating disorders. That was always a big interest of mine for many, many years. And the woman who, the subtitle is Making Peace with My Mother, Judith Ruske Rabinor, PhD. She's a major therapist. And she said that she underwent a major trauma when she was a child. What was her trauma? She was 8 years old. Her mother said, we're going to a cousin's birthday party. And she got all dressed in her finest clothes. And her mother, imagine, took her to the hospital. They strapped her onto a gurney. Goodbye. And she had her tonsils out. That was woke up the next morning, had no idea what had happened to her. And this was a huge trauma for an 8-year-old girl. Her mother had not prepared her, not one iota. And it took her a while till she got over that. And I'm thinking that in our generation, unfortunately, many of our own parents had undergone horrendous trauma during the war years. And they did not have the benefit of trauma therapy afterwards. And for years, no one even talked about it. I have, when I met with this Nechama Birnbaum, redhead of Auschwitz, she told me she wants to do research on the children of the survivors. She wasn't aware that many years ago in the 80s, there was a book written, Children of the Holocaust, by Helen Epstein, where she actually interviewed children of survivors. And I actually know some of them that she interviewed. And it was difficult. You know, the parents were traumatized. And it's incredible that to the great degree, first of all, that they built the communities, but they did raise basically normal children. I'd like to hope that I and my contemporaries, Baruch Hashem, are basically normal. And thank God we're raising healthy families. But it's an amazing thing that they were able to rebuild after what they had been through. And what I find interesting about this redhead in Auschwitz is that she discusses things that I had never read before. And what someone pointed out is that the author, the grandmother, this Rosie, she insisted that the book be printed through a secular publisher, not a Jewish publisher. She says the Jews know what went on, and the secular people don't. I mean, the non-Jews. I want the and it's selling very, very well. So what I believe are that details that would have been censored in the Jewish press were not censored here, and it was quite horrific. The humiliation to the woman, you know, it was really terrible. So just interesting on many. Oh, so she had said that she wants to do research. So I advised her to read this book. If you haven't read it, it's just interesting. But the truth is that, thank God, we are able, like Rabbi Wallerstein said, we are the butterflies. The potential is enormous. We go through metamorphosis. We're having a difficult time. We can still turn into a butterfly. We may feel like we're wrapped up in that cocoon and there's no way out. We can still emerge as the beautiful, graceful butterfly. And I'll share one more detail. Rabbi Victor Miller was a great gadol, and he would say that each of our lives is like a chapter book. We go through different chapters, and there may be challenges in each chapter. No, he says, I'm sorry, differently. He says that every chapter has a potential for enormous growth and satisfaction, yes, and happiness. It's the transitions that are difficult. You make it through the transition, you'll get to the next chapter. Just hold on. So I wish for you, all of you, only joy and contentment. May everyone be blessed. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I just ask the fast question? First of all, Miriam, it was, I have no words. It was just wonderful. Everything what you said, and you moved from one thing to the other. Each one was just, oh, wow. I have to, Baruch Hashem, Baruchati should be blessed. It's amazing. My question is, you mentioned those 2 books that you said you cannot find them on Kibbutz Avayim. How do you find them? How do you get them?
Once again, I'll give you the number, but I'm not sure. This is it's a private person.
I can't
selling it. You know what? I'm going to give it to Adele. No, here's the number. Okay, wait, here's it. The woman is Ellie Baum. Her name is Baum. And the phone number to call is 845-352-3528.
Great.
And put it into the book. Okay. I'm not sure though if they'll send it like one at it. You can ask her. I ordered 15 now, and they were just going to reprint now. I find the books fabulous, just fabulous. And you know, it's up to us. We have to. We can't let this standard fall.
Please.
Excuse me.
Can you repeat the number, please? 845.
Yes. Let me just find it again. 1 minute.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, okay, here, must be in this book. Yes, 845-352-3528. What I wanted to do I was hoping to do is to present this to the principals of my grandchildren's schools and encourage them to have all the parents read it. That's what I'm trying to do.
What's the name of it?
So many copies. All right, so you may want to do the same thing. Rav Aharon Pollack, Pollak, establishing parental status. All right. Okay, so thank you, everyone. Very best.